expect by now when dealing with phones made predominantly of glass. Just like the S7 Edge, the Note 7 has a curved edge front panel. It's not quite as drastic as the S7 Edge is, but you can definitely tell that it's there. The metal side rails are quite a bit thicker on the Note 7, so if you had problems with a lot of accidental presses with your palm or fingers on the S7 Edge's screen, it doesn't look like it'll be that much of an issue on the Note 7. The Note 7 does have a slightly larger screen at 5.7 inches versus the 5.5 of the S7 Edge, but otherwise these two displays are pretty much identical. They're Quad HD and Super AMOLED, so they're extremely sharp, bright, saturated, contrasty, and pretty much what we usually expect from a Samsung screen. With the Note 7 having a larger screen, it's obviously going to be the larger device out of the two, but it still feels extremely manageable in one hand, and it's actually a couple millimeters narrower than last year's Note 5, even though the screen size didn't change. The buttons and ports are all in the same locations, including the headphone jack and single speaker on the bottom, but instead of going with micro USB like they did with the S7 Edge, Samsung has finally made the leap to USB Type-C with the Note 7. The USB Type-C port does offer fast charging, which is great for charging the 3500 mAh battery, but even though the Note 7 is the bigger phone, the S7 Edge is the one with a slightly larger battery at 3600 mAh, but I personally don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. The rest of the hardware specs are where you're going to find these two phones to be very similar. They're both packing fingerprint sensors, the Snapdragon 820, and same 4GB of RAM, which I suppose could be disappointing if you were hoping for 6 on the Note 7, but either way, these are all top-notch specs, and with Vulkan supported games being released with the launch of the Note 7, you'll be able to take advantage of that right out of the box. With the S7 and S7 Edge, Samsung brought back micro SD card expansion and water and dust resistance again, and those features have trickled down to the Note 7. This protects not only the phone but also the S Pen, which means if you really wanted to, you could write with the Note 7 underwater. The S Pen has also been improved with a smaller tip that mimics a ballpoint pen and more levels of pressure sensitivity, and all this means is you're going to get a much more accurate and precise writing experience. A few new features and enhancements have been added to take advantage of this new S Pen, including the ability to translate text or images by hovering, magnifying the screen, and creating GIFs. The screen off memo has also been improved, giving you the ability to scroll to write longer memos, and it's also been integrated into the always on display feature, so you can see a note that you wrote without having to unlock the screen. On a hardware level, the cameras are exactly the same. There's a 12 megapixel camera on the rear and a 5 megapixel camera on the front, and considering how good the camera is on the S7, I think it's pretty safe to assume the picture quality is going to be identical on the Note 7. Where things have changed is in the camera software. It still has all the same functions and features that we saw with the S7 Edge, but it's been revamped with a slightly new look, and Samsung made it a lot easier to navigate with one hand using simple swipe gestures. So you can swipe to the left to get to the camera effects, to the right to access all the different camera modes, or swipe down to switch to the front-facing camera. Sitting to the left of that front-facing camera that you won't find on any other Samsung smartphone right now is the iris scanner that uses infrared to scan your eyes, and it seems to work extremely well, especially for a first-generation feature, and will give you an extra layer of security on top of Samsung's already pretty reliable fingerprint sensor. With the software, you've got Android Marshmallow with TouchWiz on both, and for the most part, it's a very similar experience, but on the Note 7, Samsung has cleaned things up a bit, which you'll notice in places like the notification shade and the settings menu. It feels much more streamlined, and it's nice to see that Samsung is still continuing to improve their interface. To take advantage of that curved edge glass, Samsung has also ported the Edge UX features from the S7 Edge to the Note 7, so you have all the same stuff like the Apps Edge, Task Edge, People Edge, Stocks, Sports Scores, and News, all available at the swipe of a finger. But what do you guys think of the new Note 7? Is it just an S7 Edge with an S Pen, or does the Note 7 offer enough to separate itself from Samsung's other flagships? Let us know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. There's definitely a lot more coverage to come on the Galaxy Note 7, and keep it tuned here to Android Authority, because we are your source for all things Android.